Tariq Al-Rahman,
Reginald Whitman spoke each syllable like a death sentence.
our first Muslim CEO. What a historic mistake.
Victoria Chun leaned forward, her diamond necklace catching the light.
Very fitting for someone who belongs in a desert, not a boardroom.
8 board members erupted in laughter. Phones captured everything. But what they didn't capture was the encrypted message on Tariq's watch. Khalifa Protocol activated. $1.2 billion Gulf partnership withdrawn in 47 seconds. If you want to see how corporate Islamophobia destroys billion-dollar empires, hit that subscribe button. You won't believe what happens next. But let's go back to where it all began. Tariq Al-Rahman arrived at Thomson Global Technologies headquarters at 5:47 a.m., same as every Friday for the past 15 years. The security guard, Miguel, nodded respectfully as the glass doors slid open. "Morning, Mr. Al-Rahman. Big day today." Tariq smiled, adjusting his briefcase. "Every day is big when you're building something meaningful, Miguel." The lobby was empty, pristine marble reflecting the early dawn light filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows. Tariq's footsteps echoed as he crossed toward the private elevator, his tailored Tom Ford suit immaculate, his leather Oxfords polished to perfection. Everything about him screamed success, power, achievement. Everything except the prayer rug rolled carefully inside his briefcase. The executive suite on the 42nd floor was silent. Tariq unlocked his corner office, the CEO placard gleaming on the mahogany door. Inside, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked downtown Chicago, the city just beginning to wake. He set his briefcase down carefully, removed his jacket, and rolled out the prayer rug facing east. At 6:03 a.m., Tariq began far prayer, his forehead touching the ground in the same office where he'd negotiated billion-dollar deals with Fortune 500 companies. This was his routine. Prayer first, business second, faith before everything. What Tariq didn't know was that 3 floors below, in the executive boardroom, 8 board members were already gathering. Emergency meeting, the encrypted message had read. Board members only. No CEO. Victoria Chun arrived first, her Hermes bag matching her blood-red heels. She poured coffee with steady hands, checking her phone. The group chat was exploding. Is everyone clear on the plan? Reginald Whitman entered next, his silver hair perfectly coiffed, his Rolex catching the light. Crystal clear. We've waited 15 years for this moment. Marcus Webb followed, younger, hungrier, his eyes gleaming with ambition. The Saudi deal expires today. Without that signature, we can renegotiate with Western partners. Real partners. One by one, they assembled. Patricia Morrison, Harold Chun, David Goldstein, James Rodriguez, and finally, Richard Sterling, the company founder's son who'd been passed over for CEO when Tariq was promoted. 8 powerful executives, 8 hidden agendas, 8 people who'd spent years smiling at Tariq while sharpening knives behind his back. "Gentlemen, lady," Whitman began, taking his seat at the head of the table. "Today we correct a mistake that's cost this company its soul. Tariq Al-Rahman has transformed Thomson Global into a Middle Eastern puppet. Our partnerships with Dubai, Saudi Arabia, UAE, they're not business. They're ideology." Victoria nodded sharply. "I've reviewed the contracts. Every major deal requires Islamic finance compliance, halal certification, cultural consultants. We're not a tech company anymore. We're a Sharia law experiment." Marcus Webb pulled up a presentation on the massive screen. Photos of Tariq at prayer, Tariq meeting with Gulf investors, Tariq speaking at an Islamic conference. "Our shareholders are getting nervous. Western investors don't trust us anymore. They see mosque, not boardroom. They see Middle East, not America." Patricia Morrison, the HR director, spoke quietly. "We have documentation. 3 years of complaints about religious accommodation. Employees uncomfortable with prayer rooms, halal cafeteria options, Ramadan schedule adjustments. This isn't discrimination. This is protecting company culture." Harold Chun, no relation to Victoria, added, "The FBI contacted me last month. Routine inquiry about our Middle East partnerships. They're watching us." Because of him, Reginald Whitman let the words settle like poison in the air. "We don't need a vote. The The company bylaws are clear. With majority board consensus, we can remove a CEO for conduct detrimental to corporate interests. We have 8 votes. We need 5. Victoria's smile was razor sharp. We have 8. Let's make it unanimous. James Rodriguez hesitated. What about the Gulf contracts? The Saudi deal alone is worth $900 million. If we terminate Tarek, do we risk losing it? Marcus Webb laughed. Those contracts transfer to the company, not the man. Once he's gone, we renegotiate. Western terms. American values. What none of them knew was that Tarek had spent 15 years preparing for exactly this moment. When he joined Thomson Global fresh from Stanford with his MBA, he'd been the only Muslim in leadership. He'd faced every microaggression, every suspicious glance, every whispered conversation that stopped when he entered rooms. But Tarek hadn't just survived. He'd built something unprecedented. The Khalifa Protocol wasn't in any corporate handbook. It wasn't filed with legal or recorded in board minutes. It was a series of personal relationships, trust built over decades, and contractual clauses so specific that only someone with deep cultural understanding could navigate them. Every major Gulf partnership contained a clause written in Arabic legalese that required his personal signature for renewal, his personal presence for renegotiation, his personal guarantee of cultural integrity. Without Tariq Al-Rahman, those contracts weren't just at risk. They were worthless. Upstairs, Tariq finished his prayer, rolled up the rug, and checked his watch. 6:47 a.m., 43 minutes until the Friday executive meeting. He pulled up his encrypted messaging app. 3 new messages. One from Sheikh Abdullah in Dubai. Brother Tariq, we've received concerning intelligence about board activities. Khalifa protocol ready if needed. Another from Prince Faisal's chief of staff in Riyadh. Your leadership remains essential to our partnership. Any changes to your position will require immediate contract review. The third message was from someone unexpected. Margaret Price, the company's chief technology officer, who'd worked alongside Tariq for 12 years. Emergency board meeting happening now. 3rd floor. You're not invited. They're voting you out. Phones are recording. I'm sorry, Tariq. I try to warn them. Tariq stared at the message for exactly 7 seconds. Then he opened his briefcase and withdrew a leather-bound document marked Khalifa Protocol. Activation code 777. He pressed his thumb to the biometric scanner built into the cover. The document unlocked, revealing pages of contracts, partnership agreements, and one red button labeled Execute. Tariq pressed it. In Dubai, Sheikh Abdullah's phone buzzed. Protocol activated. Understood. In Riyadh, Prince Faisal's chief of staff received the same alert. In Abu Dhabi, the UAE Minister of Economic Development opened an encrypted file. Across the Middle East, 12 powerful leaders received the same message. Tariq Al-Rahman has activated Khalifa Protocol. All Thomson Global partnerships under immediate review. 3 floors below, Reginald Whitman was smiling. Let's vote. All in favor of removing Tariq Al-Rahman as CEO of Thomson Global Technologies, effective immediately, say aye. 8 voices responded in perfect unison. Aye. Victoria Chun pulled out her phone. I'm texting him now. This is going to be delicious. Her fingers flew across the screen. Emergency meeting. 3rd floor boardroom. Now. Upstairs, Tariq read the message. His face remained perfectly calm. He straightened his tie, grabbed his briefcase containing the now-activated Khalifa Protocol, and walked toward the elevator. 47 seconds had passed since he pressed the button. In that time, $1.2 billion in Middle Eastern partnerships had just entered a contractual black hole that would consume Thomson Global Technologies from inside out. But the board didn't know that yet. They were still laughing, still celebrating, still recording their victory on phones that would soon become evidence in the largest corporate discrimination lawsuit in American history. Tariq stepped into the elevator. The doors closed, and the countdown to corporate. The elevator descended in silence. Tariq watched the floor numbers drop. 42, 38, 25. Each number a second closer to confrontation. His reflection stared back from polished steel. Dark beard trimmed precisely. Steel gray suit without a wrinkle. Brown eyes that had seen every form of corporate betrayal. The doors opened on the third floor. Margaret Price waited, her face pale. They recorded everything. The vote, Victoria's desert remark. Tarek, they're going to humiliate you. He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Sometimes humiliation is just preparation for vindication. She stepped aside as he walked toward the boardroom. Inside, 8 board members sat in positions of power. Reginald Whitman at the head. Victoria, Chan to his right, checking her manicured nails. Marcus Webb leaning back with arms crossed. Tarek opened the door without knocking. 8 pairs of eyes fixed on him with expressions ranging from contempt to glee. Tarek, Whitman's voice dripped false warmth. Please sit. He gestured to a single chair positioned opposite the board. Isolated. Alone. Tarek remained standing. I prefer to stand for what comes next. Victoria laughed, sharp and cutting. What comes next is very simple. You're fired. Tarek's expression didn't change. Fired. I assume you followed proper termination protocols? Marcus Webb pulled out a document. Company Bylaws, Section 47B. Board majority can remove a CEO for conduct detrimental to corporate interests. We voted 8-0. You're done. Tarek walked slowly to the window. Through the glass, Chicago stretched endlessly. Conduct detrimental. Tell me, which conduct specifically? The 15 consecutive quarters of record profits? The expansion that tripled our valuation? Patricia Morrison spoke up, clinical. Your religious practices create workplace tension. Multiple complaints about prayer accommodations, dietary restrictions, Ramadan schedules. Tarek turned slowly. Employees feel pressured by voluntary prayer rooms and halal menu options. Victoria leaned forward, her diamond necklace catching light. You've turned this company into a Middle Eastern subsidiary. Our shareholders want American leadership, not a cultural experiment. American leadership, Tarek echoed. I was born in Michigan. Stanford MBA. 15 years building this company from $800 million to $6 billion. But my beard makes me foreign. Harold Chin interjected. The FBI contacted us about your Middle East connections. Tarek's laugh was quiet but sharp. Did the FBI open an investigation, or did someone from this table make a suspicious activity report? The silence confirmed everything. Reginald Whitman stood, commanding the room. This conversation is over. You're terminated immediately. Security will escort you out. Your access badges are deactivated. He extended his hand like a king granting dismissal. Tarek didn't move. Before I go, one question. Are any of you familiar with conditional signature clauses in international Islamic finance contracts? Marcus Webb frowned. What are you talking about? The Saudi Defense Partnership. $900 million. Do you know who holds the personal guarantee signature that keeps that contract enforceable? Whitman's confidence flickered. The contract transfers regardless of personnel changes. Tarek shook his head. Not under Islamic finance law. Without my quarterly reauthorization signature, the contract enters default status. Patricia Morrison pulled out her laptop frantically. That can't be legal. Tarek continued calmly. The UAE Consortium, $700 million, requires annual cultural compliance certification signed personally by me. The Dubai Smart City Initiative, $400 million, contains a good faith clause allowing withdrawal if leadership integrity is compromised. Victoria's face went white. You can't void contracts just because you're fired, Tarek replied. I'm not voiding anything. Islamic finance law is voiding them automatically, which happened 8 minutes ago when you voted. James Rodriguez found his voice. This is extortion. Tarek's expression hardened. No, this is consequence. You thought you could remove the Muslim CEO and keep his Muslim partnerships. That's not how trust works. Every phone in the room erupted simultaneously. Marcus Webb stared at his screen, face draining. Saudi Defense Ministry contract suspension notice. Pending leadership review. Patricia Morrison's hand shook. UAE Consortium withdrawal letter. Immediate termination. Harold Chin looked ill. Dubai project canceled. Breach of cultural good faith. Tarek checked his watch. That's $1.2 billion entering default. Your stock price should start dropping in 90 seconds when Bloomberg picks this up. Victoria stood abruptly, her chair scraping. You bastard. You planned this. Tarek's smile was cold. I planned for 15 years of Islamophobia to require accountability. You accelerated the timeline. Reginald Whitman's jaw clenched. We can sue you for breach of fiduciary duty. Tarek pulled out his phone, playing a video. The board meeting. 8 votes. Victoria's Desert Comet. Everything recorded. This footage is currently being reviewed by the EEOC, Department of Justice, and 3 national news networks. I'm sure a jury will find your termination very justified. The room exploded in chaos. Voices overlapping, phones ringing, panic spreading. But Tarek remained still in the center of the storm, a man who'd spent 15 years building not just partnerships, but insurance. The Khalifa Protocol wasn't revenge. It was justice with $1 billion price tag. Reginald Whitman's hand shook as he refreshed his portfolio app. Thomson Global Stock, $87.43. Refresh. $84.22. Refresh. $79.15. Each refresh a free fall. Each second $1 billion evaporating. Make it stop, he whispered. Someone make it stop. Victoria Chun was already on her phone, her polished composure cracking. Legal? Victoria Chun. We need immediate injunction against Tarek Auermann. Contract interference, corporate sabotage, anything. The lawyer's voice came through speaker. Ms. Chun, if those contracts contain Islamic finance, clauses requiring personal guarantees, we have no legal standing. He didn't breach. You triggered automatic defaults by terminating him. Marcus Webb slammed his laptop shut. Bloomberg just published. Thomson Global loses $1.2 billion in Middle East partnerships following CEO termination. With a lead story, Patricia Morrison stared at her screen, face ashen. CNBC is calling it corporate suicide. Fox Business wants interviews. The Wall Street Journal is asking if this was discriminatory termination. Harold Chun looked at Tarek, still standing calmly by the window. You destroyed this company. 15,000 employees will lose their jobs because of your ego. Tarek turned slowly, his voice carrying ice. No, Harold. 15,000 employees will lose their jobs because 8 board members chose bigotry over billions. You fired me for being Muslim. The contracts simply reflected that choice back to you. James Rodriguez found his voice. We can rehire you. Emergency vote. Reinstate your position immediately. Tarek's laugh was soft but cutting. You think I'd return to work for people who called me a desert dweller? Who reported me to the FBI as a security threat? Who voted unanimously to erase 15 years of my work? Victoria stood, desperation replacing contempt. Name your price. 10 million severance. 20. Whatever you want. I don't want your money, Tarek replied. I want accountability. His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. CNN is reporting your stock dropped 42% in 17 minutes. That's a new record for single-day corporate collapse. Congratulations. Reginald Whitman's face turned purple. We can prove you sabotaged us. That video you're showing everyone will claim it's edited, taken out of context. Tarek tapped his phone. Suddenly, the boardroom's video screen activated. The same meeting they'd just held began playing. But this wasn't from Tarek's phone. It was from the room's own security cameras. Crystal clear. Professionally recorded. 8 board members voting. Victoria's exact words. Very fitting for someone who belongs in a desert, not a boardroom. Marcus Webb's voice. We see mosque, not boardroom. Patricia Morrison's clinical tone. This isn't discrimination. The video ended. Tarek's voice cut through their horror. Thomson Global has security protocols that record all board meetings for compliance purposes. This isn't my footage. It's yours. Company property. Already subpoenaed by the Department of Justice. Victoria collapsed into her chair. Her diamond necklace suddenly looked like a noose. Marcus Webb's face went gray. The DOJ? For what? Title VII violation. Religious discrimination. Creating hostile work environment for protected class. The Civil Rights Act has very specific language about termination based on religious identity. Tarek's phone buzzed again. CARE just filed an amicus brief supporting federal investigation. The ACLU is offering pro bono representation. The National Employment Lawyers Association is calling this a landmark case. Patricia Morrison's HR training kicked in too late. We documented performance concerns, cultural fit issues. This wasn't about religion. Tarek pulled out a folder from his briefcase. Inside, 15 years of performance reviews. Every single one rated exceeds expectations or higher. 3 CEO of the Year awards. 7 industry innovation recognitions. Cultural fit, he read from one document. Please define what culture I didn't fit, Patricia. The culture of being white? Of not praying? Of having a name that sounds American enough? James Rodriguez tried one last time. Tarek, please. We made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But destroying the company doesn't help anyone. Tarek's eyes hardened. I'm not destroying anything. I'm revealing what was already broken. You built a company on brilliant technology and systemic bigotry. I'm just removing the facade. Margaret Price appeared in the doorway, breathless. Mr. Auerman, Sheikh Abdullah from Dubai, is on secure line. He says it's urgent. Tarek nodded, putting the phone to his ear. He spoke in fluent Arabic for 30 seconds, listened for 1 minute, then responded. The board members watched helplessly, unable to understand the language of billion-dollar decisions being made without them. Tarek ended the call. Sheikh Abdullah offers his condolences for your loss. He's redirecting the UAE consortium partnership to a competing firm, one with more enlightened leadership. Victoria's voice cracked. We can fix this. Change the board composition. Mandatory diversity training. Whatever it takes. You had 15 years to fix it, Tarek said quietly. Every microaggression I ignored. Every suspicious glance. Every time my name was mispronounced deliberately. Every security check I endured that white executives never faced. I gave you 15 years of patience. You gave me 8 votes and a racist insult. Reginald Whitman's phone rang. He answered, listened, then went pale. That was our largest institutional investor. They're divesting. 40 million shares. Effective immediately. The room fell silent except for the constant buzz of phones delivering increasingly catastrophic news. Thomson Global Technologies, once valued at $6 billion, was bleeding out in real time. And standing in the center of the carnage was the man they'd underestimated, a Muslim CEO who'd spent 15 years building not just a company, but an unbreakable fail-safe. Tarek picked up his briefcase. Gentlemen, lady, I have a press conference in 30 minutes. The world is very interested in how corporate Islamophobia destroys shareholder value. He walked toward the door, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. Check your personal liability insurance policies. Religious discrimination lawsuits typically exceed corporate coverage limits. This comes out of your personal assets. The door closed behind him. 8 board members sat in ruins of their own making, surrounded by the evidence of their hatred, while somewhere in Chicago, a Muslim man who'd been told he belonged in a desert prepared to rebuild his legacy on the ashes of their empire. The Hilton Chicago conference room held 200 journalists, cameras, and the kind of electric tension that preceded corporate executions. Tarek Auerman stood at the podium at 10:47 a.m., exactly 31 minutes after walking out of the boardroom. His suit remained immaculate, his expression calm. Behind him, a screen displayed one image. Thomson Global stock chart, a red line falling like a cliff into hell. Thank you for coming on short notice, Tarek began. This morning at 6:43 a.m., I was fired from Thomson Global Technologies. The reason given was conduct detrimental to corporate interests. The actual reason was this. He touched a remote. The boardroom video began playing. Victoria Chin's voice filled the room. Very fitting for someone who belongs in a desert, not a boardroom. The journalists erupted. Questions flew like bullets. Tarek raised one hand. The video you're seeing is from Thomson Global's own security system. Unedited. Authenticated by forensic analysts. 8 board members voted unanimously to terminate me without cause, without severance, without dignity. They assumed my Middle Eastern partnerships would transfer seamlessly. They were wrong. CNN's business correspondent stood. Mr. Auerman, reports indicate $1.2 billion in contracts have been suspended. Did you deliberately sabotage the company? Tarek's gaze was steady. I didn't sabotage anything. Islamic finance law requires personal guarantees from the signatory. When Thomson Global terminated me for being Muslim, those contracts automatically entered review status. The board destroyed their own partnerships by choosing bigotry over business. A Wall Street Journal reporter called out, "Are you seeking financial damages?" Tarek smiled thinly. "I'm seeking justice. Financial damages will be determined by federal courts. But I want to be clear, this isn't about one Muslim CEO. It's about every Muslim professional who's been told they don't belong. Every woman in hijab passed over for promotion. Every Arab American treated like a security threat in their own workplace. Fox Business pushed forward. What happens to Thomson Global's 15,000 employees?" Tarek's expression softened slightly. "That depends entirely on the board's next actions. If they resign immediately and allow ethical leadership to rebuild, the company might survive. If they fight, litigation will consume every asset. Employees will suffer because 8 bigots couldn't see past a beard and a Muslim name." His phone buzzed on the podium. Tarek glanced at it. "I've just received confirmation that Thomson Global stock has triggered NYSE trading halts. 3 times in 2 hours. Current value, $41 per share. That is 73% loss since this morning." The room went silent. 73%. $4.5 billion evaporated. Bloomberg's reporter asked, "Do you have plans to return to Thomson Global?" Tarek's laugh was cold. "Would you return to work for people who called you a terrorist? Who reported you to the FBI? Who erased 15 years of excellence because your prayers made them uncomfortable? No, I have better offers." "Better offers?" multiple journalists asked simultaneously. Tarek nodded. "Since 9:15 this morning, I've received employment offers from 4 Fortune 500 companies, 3 sovereign wealth funds, and 2 venture capital firms, all offering CEO positions, all with contractual guarantees against religious discrimination. The market values integrity, even if Thomson Global's board doesn't." Victoria Chin's name flashed across Tarek's phone. 17 missed calls. He held it up to the cameras. "That's Victoria Chin, the board member who made the desert comment. She's called me 19 times in the past hour. I've blocked her number." The room chuckled darkly. "Reginald Whitman, the board chairman, sent me an email offering $50 million to reconsider my position. I forwarded it to the Department of Justice as evidence of attempted bribery during a federal investigation." CNBC's anchor looked stunned. "The DOJ is investigating?" Tarek nodded. "Title VII violation. Religious discrimination. Creating hostile work environment. The Civil Rights Division opened an investigation 23 minutes ago. CARE has filed supporting documentation. The ACLU is providing legal counsel. This will become a landmark case." His phone buzzed again. Tarek read the message and smiled genuinely for the first time. "I've just been informed that Sheikh Abdullah of Dubai and Prince Faisal of Saudi Arabia are jointly funding a new technology consortium. They've offered me chairmanship. Initial funding, $2 billion. First project, competing directly with Thomson Global in every market they currently operate." The implications hit like thunder. Thomson Global wasn't just losing partnerships. They were creating a competitor funded by the very people they'd alienated, led by the man they'd humiliated. Reuters correspondent asked, "Is this revenge?" Tarek's eyes hardened. "This is capitalism. Thomson Global taught me that business is ruthless. I'm simply applying their lesson with better partners." Margaret Price appeared at the side door, holding a tablet. She caught Tarek's eye and nodded urgently. Tarek excused himself briefly, reading the screen she showed him. When he returned to the podium, his expression was unreadable. "I've just received news that Thomson Global's board has called an emergency shareholder meeting. They're attempting to deflect blame, claim I'm the problem, and restructure to prevent further losses." He paused for effect. "What they don't know is that I purchased 9% of Thomson Global stock over the past 3 years. Combined with institutional investors who've contacted me in the last hour, we represent 43% voting control. The board thinks they're having a meeting. They're actually attending their own removal hearing." The room exploded. 9% ownership. 43% control. Tariq Al-Rahman hadn't just survived his firing. He'd positioned himself to take over the company that betrayed him. One final statement. Tariq said, voice carrying absolute authority. To every Muslim professional watching this, document everything. Record discrimination. Build your leverage. And when they try to erase you, make sure the whole world is watching. He stepped away from the podium as questions erupted. But Tariq was already moving toward the exit, toward Phase 2 of the Khalifa Protocol, complete acquisition.
The Thomson Global shareholder meeting began at 2 p.m. in the main auditorium. Reginald Whitman stood at the podium, his silver hair less perfect now, his Rolex catching lights from hundreds of cameras. Ladies and gentlemen, we've called this emergency meeting to address the unfortunate situation with our former CEO. Unfortunate! A voice echoed from the back. Tariq Al-Rahman walked down the center aisle, flanked by Margaret Price and 3 attorneys. That's an interesting way to describe religious discrimination. Whitman's face went pale. Mr. Al-Rahman, you're not a board member. You can't be here. Tariq smiled. Actually, I own 9% of this company. That gives me speaking rights. And I'm not alone. Behind him, institutional investors began standing. CalPERS representative, Vanguard proxy, State Street portfolio manager. One by one, they identified themselves. Combined voting control, 43%. We're calling for immediate board removal and replacement. Victoria Chen shot to her feet. This is a hostile takeover. Tariq's attorney stepped forward. This is shareholders exercising fiduciary duty. Your actions cost this company 73% of its value in 6 hours. You're a liability. Marcus Webb tried to regain control. Our legal team has prepared a defense. Tariq Al-Rahman engaged in contract manipulation. He sabotaged partnerships deliberately. The auditorium screen activated. Federal prosecutor Sarah Mitchell appeared via video conference. Thomson Global Board, I'm Assistant U.S. Attorney Mitchell, Civil Rights Division. We've reviewed your security footage, employment records, and witness statements. 8 counts of Title VII violations. 4 counts of conspiracy to discriminate. You're not defending anything. You're facing federal indictment. The room erupted in chaos. Journalists rushed forward. Shareholders began shouting questions. Reginald Whitman's hands gripped the podium. This is political correctness gone mad. We had legitimate business concerns. Prosecutor Mitchell's voice cut through. Mr. Whitman, calling a Muslim CEO a desert dweller isn't a business concern. It's a hate crime in the workplace. Patricia Morrison stood shakily. I have a statement from HR. We followed proper protocols. Margaret Price stood up, holding a folder. I'm Thomson Global CTO. I've documented 15 years of microaggressions, discriminatory practices, and retaliation against Muslim employees. This isn't one termination. It's systemic Islamophobia. I'm testifying for the prosecution. Harold Chen looked at Tariq desperately. What do you want? The company's already destroyed. Tariq walked to the podium. Whitman stepped aside like a defeated king. What I want is simple. Full board resignation. $50 million diversity fund. Federal monitoring for 5 years. And complete restructuring with zero tolerance for religious discrimination. Victoria Chen's voice was barely a whisper. If we resign, we lose everything. Tariq's gaze was steel. You lost everything when you chose hatred over humanity. I'm just making it official. James Rodriguez stood slowly. I resign. Effective immediately. One by one, the board members stood. Each resignation another admission of defeat. Patricia Morrison. Harold Chen. David Goldstein. Marcus Webb. Finally, Victoria Chen, her diamond necklace dull in the harsh lights. I resign. Reginald Whitman was last. He looked at Tariq with something between rage and broken respect. You destroyed a $6 billion company over hurt feelings. Tariq's voice carried to every corner of the room. No, Reginald. You destroyed it by thinking Muslims don't belong in boardrooms. I just made sure the whole world saw what bigotry actually costs. Whitman signed the resignation letter. 8 board members walked out through a gauntlet of cameras, their careers finished, their reputations destroyed, their names forever attached to one of the largest discrimination cases in corporate history. Tariq turned to the shareholders. Thomson Global will survive, but it will be rebuilt on values, not prejudice. On merit, not religion. On excellence, not exclusion. Sheikh Abdullah appeared via video link. Mr. Al-Rahman, the Gulf Consortium, is prepared to reinvest. $2 billion. Contingent on your chairmanship and ethical leadership guarantees. Tariq nodded. Accepted. But this time, contracts include mandatory diversity protections and third-party civil rights auditing. 3 months later, Thomson Global Technologies was renamed Crescent Global Technologies. Stock price, $93 per share. Market cap, $7 billion. Tariq Al-Rahman stood as chairman, leading a board that included 2 Muslims, 3 women, and 4 minorities. The Khalifa Protocol became required teaching in business schools worldwide, a case study in how preparation meets prejudice. In boardrooms across America, Muslim professionals watched Tariq's story and understood. Document everything, build leverage, and never let them tell you where you belong. Victoria Chen's desert comment became a hashtag, a warning, a line that destroyed careers and rebuilt industries. Tariq stood in his new office, prayer rug rolled beside his desk, Chicago stretching endlessly through the windows. His phone buzzed. A message from a young Muslim graduate. Thank you for showing us we don't have to accept discrimination. I just reported my company. Your story gave me courage. Tariq smiled. The Khalifa Protocol wasn't just about contracts. It was about every Muslim professional who refused to be erased. Every voice that documented injustice. Every person who understood that sometimes justice requires burning down everything they try to take from you, then rebuilding it better. The desert comment cost Victoria Chen her career. It cost Thomson Global $4.5 billion. But it gave millions of Muslims something priceless, proof that fighting back works. That Islamophobia has consequences. That excellence, preparation, and courage can defeat even the most powerful bigotry. Tariq knelt for ASR prayer. Outside his window, the city hummed with possibility. And somewhere, another Muslim professional was documenting discrimination, building leverage, preparing their own protocol. The revolution didn't start in boardrooms. It started when people refused to accept that they didn't belong.